Ahmad Hassanein will be the Detroit Lions edge rushing two of the future. And it may not be this season, but within the next couple of years, he will be a household name for Detroit Lions fans. He will be the running mate to Aidan Hutchinson. He will be playing alongside a great defensive line with Ali McNeil, Tyleik Williams, and of course, Aidan Hutchinson across from him. And we're going to be looking back at this draft class and wondering, one, how he fell so far, two, how anybody ever thought that the edge rushing group wasn't addressed enough in the offseason, and three, what a great pick Ahmad Hassanein turned out to be. And I know it's been a small sample size. I know we've only seen him in camp and we've only seen him through the first Hall of Fame preseason game. But despite that, I feel pretty confident in saying that he is going to be one of the next steals of the Brad Holmes era. He is going to be the next St. Brown, the next Derek Barnes, the next, late day 2, day 3, Malcolm Rodriguez-esque player that may not be a Pro Bowler, may not be a star, but for Detroit Lions fans, he will be a household name, he will be a contributor, and he's going to be a player that everybody knows and everybody remembers when they host the Lombardi Trophy. And today we're going to take a look at Ahmad. We're going to take a look at his preseason debut, take a look at his college career and why the Detroit Lions selected him, and kind of project his future for the Lions organization as well. So, with that being said, let's get right on into it. As Ahmad Hassanein is actually a little bit small than a typical Detroit Lions edge rusher, standing at 6'3", 270 pounds. He recorded a 7.08 raw athleticism score with 32.25-inch arms, a 4.77 40-yard dash, and an impressive 27 reps on the bench. Now, at Boise State, Ahmad Hassanein played a lot of games. He played 49 for the Broncos, but only ended up starting about 28 of those games in his final 2 seasons when he began to start. In those starts, Ahmad Hassanein totaled 119 tackles, 35 tackles for loss, 24 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery. Now, a lot of people will look and point to the fact that while this is an impressive stat line, it was done in the Mountain West. It was done against weaker competition. It was done in a smaller conference. And for some reason, a lot of people seem to illegitimize production when it comes from smaller schools, despite the fact that guys like Khalil Mack, Matt Judon, and several other elite edge rushers over the years have come from schools that weren't the big ones, that weren't the Alabamas, that weren't the Ohio States, that weren't the Michigans or the, whatever, right? The Clemsons. There are a ton of talented kids that come out of college that produce, that do well, that play fantastic football. And for whatever reason, they get overlooked because they played in the Mountain West, because they played in the MAC, because they played in whatever small conference, and they didn't play against the nationally ranked televised team every single week. And that is Ahmad Hassanein. He was a fantastic player. He was a great contributor. He was a massive part of why that Boise State team was able to go to the college football playoffs. And despite that, everybody kind of overlooks him because of how good Ashton Jency was on the offense, but again, just because of the Mountain West competition in general. Over his 2 years as a starter, he was named a back-to-back first-team All-Mountain West teammate, and he was one of course, the very best defenders throughout the conference. That, unfortunately, didn't lead to a lot of draft success, as he was picked with the 6th round of the NFL draft, 20th selection in that round for 196 overall. He is a player that fell really far in the draft, largely due to his playing experience, again, level of competition, and overall just not seeming to receive a lot of hype and having a lot of expectations going into the year. As somebody who follows the draft very closely, as somebody who personally likes to watch as many players as possible, especially at positions of interest for the Detroit Lions, I didn't know anything about Ahmad Hassanein when he was coming out of college. When he was selected in the 6th round, I had to do research. I had to look up and I had to see what he was and where he was going for the Detroit Lions for what they were getting in their selection. He was not talked about very often, and even when he was selected, the segment was incredibly short. It was a minute, maybe 2 minutes long, a couple of highlights here and there, but overall, even the coverage on draft day was very limited on what Ahmad Hassanein could potentially be. It was mostly focused on the fact that he was an Egyptian player, that he was a foreign player, that he hadn't played the game for a very long time, and didn't really delve into the strengths and weaknesses, didn't really delve into what he did at Boise State. And when you do those things, when you do look at what he did, when you do watch him at Boise State, when he played against Oregon in week 2, when he played against Penn State in the college football playoffs, he starts to jump off the film quite a bit. He starts to look like a player that very easily could have been a day 2 selection if he was given a little bit more media hype. Now, his first preseason game went about as well as you could ask for. He led the Detroit Lions defense defense, and really the Detroit Lions as a football team with the highest pro football focus grade of the night with an 85.7. He was recorded with 3 run stops, a pressure, and 4 tackles on the night. He was easily the Detroit Lions' best defensive lineman. He had some fantastic swim moves he showed off. He looked to really develop throughout the offseason, a little bit of a bag of tricks, if you will, to get around players, to get through players. And obviously, granted, he's going against backup tackles, but when you're dominating backup tackles, that's a good sign that you're ready to take on the starters and at least at the very minimum compete with those starters on a snap-to-snap basis. Now, throughout training camp, we've already heard that Ahmad Hassanein is taking pretty significant reps with the second-team defense despite being that 6th-round selection. He's playing very well throughout training camp. It's been a great run stopper throughout camp, and it seems like every single day Ahmad Hassanein gets mentioned. It seems like every single day we're talking about how he had a pressure on the quarterback, how he had a great run defending set, how he, wrecked a drive for the second team offense, and really just going about his camp and being a really successful player. Aidan Hutchinson has had a lot of positive things to say about him. Alex Anzalone has had a couple positive things to say. Kelvin Shepherd speaks volumes about this player as a young guy and kind of developing him into what they want as an edge rusher too. And there is a clear path to playing time for Ahmad Hassanein. The edge rushing group, as far as I am concerned, is not a weakness, but there is a path. There is a ladder for him to get to playing time this year. The rest of the edge rushing group outside of Hassanein, of course, is Aidan Hutchinson, who's a defensive player of the year caliber type of talent. And then you have Marcus Davenport, who from all accounts, again, is one of the superstars of training camp. If he can stay healthy, him and Aidan Hutchinson are going to wreak havoc on the edge rushing side of things. And of course, with Tyleik Williams, Aleem McNeil, and DJ Reader, the interior of the defensive line should be quite good as well. But Marcus Davenport, when healthy, is easily a top 60 player at his position, is easily a top-end edge rusher too. And if the Detroit Lions can keep him healthy, the defensive line will be very good, and probably Ahmad won't have a lot of time to play. Josh Paschal sits in front of him, but as of right now is on the PUP list, is not playing for the Detroit Lions, and very well may not play until October, if not November, of the NFL season. So right there, Ahmad Hassanein jumps a spot. Aidan Hutchinson, one of the stars from last year's defense, if you could call it that, it is on the roster as well. He had 3 sacks in 8 games a season ago, was just as productive as Zadarius Smith was on the defensive side of the ball, but he's more of a pass rushing specialist, right? He's a little bit smaller at 6'1", 6'2", about 250 pounds. He's a little bit lighter. He's a little bit, smaller than a guy like Ahmad Hassanein, and certainly smaller than Aidan Hutchinson or Marcus Davenport. He's kind of the third down edge rusher, the James Houston of the world that they kind of say that they don't want, but always seem to end up with one on the roster at some point throughout the season. And from there, you have guys like Mitchell Agude, who started off as a solid edge rusher too, but again, after the preseason game, seemed to have fallen back on the depth chart a little bit. Nate Lynn had a fantastic preseason debut as well. He's going to jump up and compete for that pass rushing spot. And Isaac Ukwu, a player that last offseason was fantastic and had a couple pressures in the preseason game as well. So there is some depth here. There are some quality pass rushers and pass rushers that have played quite well throughout the preseason. Mitchell Agude made plays. Nate Lynn certainly made a lot of plays with several pressures in the Hall of Fame game, and even Isaac Ukwu can start for that spot and fight for it. So while there is certainly competition for that spot, I think Ahmad Hassanein is well on his way to a starting repetition and a starting rotational spot. He's certainly ahead of Isaac Ukwu. I think he's ahead of Nate Lynn on the depth chart. He's ahead of Mitchell Agude. I think for certain packages and situations, he'd be ahead of Aidan Hutchinson. And with Josh Paschal on the injury report, well, all of a sudden, Ahmad Hassanein is at worst the edge rusher 4 and potentially even your primary rotational piece on the outside of that defensive line. He's a player that has a super high motor. He's great at setting the edge based on what we saw last night and what we saw a few nights ago at the Hall of Fame game. He's a strong pass rusher. He's developed quite a few moves. He had a nasty swim move a couple of times that got tackles on the offensive line. He bull rushed guys into the quarterback. He had a spin move once that was really nice. Like, he's developed quite a bit. He says he's been studying Aidan Hutchinson, and personally, I would believe it. He looks like a mini Aidan Hutchinson. He looks like an Aidan Hutchinson light-esque player, and even if he's not that, even if he doesn't turn into Aidan Hutchinson, even if he doesn't turn into a 10, 11 sack type of player, if he can even be somewhat reliable as a 6th-round pick, get you 6 to 7 sacks in a season, just be a disruptor on the other side of the offensive line up to what Aidan Hutchinson is doing, he's going to have a spot in Detroit for a very long time. He's going to become an immediate fan favorite for the Detroit Lions. And again, it's a small sample size. It's just the Hall of Fame game. It's just training camp. But going into week 2 of the preseason, I don't know if a single player has more hype than Ahmad Hassanein. We know in Detroit that the fans like their edge rushers. They like their pass rushers who get to the quarterback, and Ahmad Hassanein showed exactly that a week ago. So I think he's a player to reach for. I think he's a player to watch out for, and really I think he's a guy that's going to develop into a quality starter for the Detroit Lions. Again, maybe not this season, but if injuries arise and that role is forced upon him, I think he's going to rise to the occasion, and we're going to see another slam dunk pick from Brad Holmes. But with that being said, that is just my take for the day. Let me know what your opinion was and your first takeaway for Ahmad Hassanein throughout the first preseason game. I'd love to hear your opinions, whether they be positive or negative. And with that being said, leave your comments down below. I'd love to hear them. But with that being said, thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, and as always, go Lions.